No, I don't need it.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Highway Garage Study Group Forum tonight. Our goal tonight is to better understand what you guys want from the Highway Garage. So to that end, what we're going to do is Jim's going to review the town meeting presentation to keep it fresh in everybody's mind. Everyone will have a chance to wander around and look at the poster boards and understand them a little better. Then we'll have a question and answer period. And then we're going to have an exercise where the dots on the table, we're going to ask everybody to go up and put 2 dots on the poster boards. One being which option you like best, and the other one being whether you think we should build a sand shed or not. And then we've got some questions to get a little more detailed input from everybody. And we'll pass those out and go over them and then ask you guys to put some comments on them and leave them here when you leave. Any questions on the agenda? Take it away, let me set you up.
Okay, we're gonna switch over so we can display. First of all, is there anyone here that wasn't at town meeting? Because that will determine on how fast I go through this presentation. Okay. So, Yep. Yeah. I don't know either.
You gotta stop. You gotta restart. This just one. You had it working a minute ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Roll on. Is that restart?
Yeah. Oh, wrong button.
Well, no. They did roll up. Yeah. And then roll on.
Where's Danny?
Mike's still work. Okay, right. Yeah. Yeah, that's me. We lost our projector. No, that number didn't change. Didn't change. It went from 164,264,000 to 269 to 216,000. It went down. That's right, because it's the value of the town is higher, is sort of spread out over more property.
There are snacks in the back of the room. Now might be a good time to have one. For the fun of it.
Hey, that's a nice brownies, cookies, water. Hey, lights on. End of
Yeah, projectors of them. Right.
Okay. Up there. Yeah, it picks up on. There you go.
Yeah, yeah. You can't see what's going on. Yeah, nice. 16.
Come on. No, don't restart. No. No, 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 I don't want that.
What do you mean?
Display settings.
There you go.
Let's see.
So,
All
I
right,
mean, if you want to click into it.
don't go away. You got it, good name. Ah,
No input. You gotta do. Bluetooth connection.
People that are authorized.
Okay,
There we go.
check.
Well, it's this way.
Okay.
So now read fast, everybody.
Yeah.
We're getting close.
It's gotta be a power thing. Gotta be a power thing.
Do you have, power? Yeah, we get this
That's.
AC adapter? Yeah. they have power. Okay.
Let's try that.
Yeah.
May not be enough. May not be enough
Yeah,
juice to
well.
run that HDMI via battery.
It's kind of working before. It did. Oh, that's what he
Yeah.
said. He said, you're not out online with the rest of the community. Right, you were broadcasting. Right, so then they shut things down and now they're trying to get it back. Up. Right, it's supposed to be Zoom in. So I guess we weren't Zoom in. We had local. Zoom.
But not up back here now.
Well, we weren't doing that. We weren't doing that.
Yeah, we're downstairs.
There it is. On that.
Yummy. I was like, increasing my appetite.
All right. Yeah, display settings here before came up. That just says how to extend it, right?
Do you know, do you have an idea, Rob?
Yeah.
My idea, guy.
So, let's duplicate is good.
Right. It should be fine.
Yeah.
That.
Okay.
It's just a.
There's this. That
Display.
could be it. So go back
Knock
up.
that
again.
down
Yeah, sure.
to.
And,
Centrum.
yeah,
1280,
yeah, whatever,
somewhere.
somewhere small. So let's see if we can, that fixes up. That's very small. Okay, Kate. You're a lefty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stands and like
Okay.
that.
Operator.
So another way.
These are, wow.
So another way would be just get back to this and then go in via. Oh, okay.
Okay, at the moment we're on. So we'll go here. And- All right, all right, we'll see if it goes. Okay,
I don't think we're zooming.
all right. Yes, yes. Yes. I'm not gonna, yeah, that didn't knock out the Zoom. The computer's still running. That was just a display that went away, I believe. Okay, for those who weren't at or don't remember town meeting, I'll go quickly through the report that was put together and presented at town meeting. And in about a year ago, 22nd of June, 2023, at a special town meeting, we established this highway garage study group to look at all options pertaining to the current highway department site to include a feasibility study and a cost analysis. And we were told to report its findings to the 2024 town meeting, which is this report that I'm putting in front of you now. One more time. All right. And it's not a PowerPoint, it is a PDF, so I'm gonna scroll properly. So where were we at town meeting time? We really identified what the requirements of the highway department are and what the capabilities of the current site were to meet those requirements. What's the difference, the shortfalls between what the requirements of the highway department are and what the site has? And what options exist on the current site to either eliminate those shortfalls or improve the site utility. Remember, we didn't look across all potential sites in the whole town because that wasn't in our charter. We started a cost benefit analysis. We got well through the kind of hard cost about the various construction options that were out there in front of us. And what we're doing now, part of what we're doing now is coming to the town and looking at the soft cost or the soft really benefits of improving the town, of improving the site. You know, how much are parking spots worth to you as town members, right? Those kind of things. Working with the population this year to develop a recommendation. Looking at alternative funding sources for any recommended actions that come out of all these forums and bringing a warrant article for those actions, if any, to a future town meeting. Okay. Requirements to do their job, and the highway department kind of can do their job. So by definition, what they have now meets their requirements. Is 4 20 by 40 heated bays for salt and sand trucks and a loader, 1 20 by 40 storage area, secure for ground maintenance equipment, outside storage for the grader, the backhoe, trailer plows, wood splitter, brush chopper, the other miscellaneous things that are out in the yard right now, material of storage for salt, sand, and gravel. Salt has to be a shed protected from the environment, sand pile, works in the condition it's in now, and the gravel piles as well. And they need fuel on site. There is a 500-gallon diesel with environmental containment on the site right now. And all those requirements were determined through multiple rounds of interviews with highway department personnel, conversations with heavy equipment vendors, conversations with other town highway departments in the area, and some research on the environmental regulations, safety requirements, and best practices in the area of environmental protection for the site. Okay. As I said, we did a thorough site evaluation, multiple walkthroughs and inventories of the existing facilities to understand what's here. And then Russ Huntley performed a full survey of the topography, soils, aquifers, boundaries, wetlands, the current structures and utilities, and restrictions for use of the current highway garage property. So thank you, Russ, for doing that for the town. And the completion of the safety analysis is on hold. There is a safe streets, is that, or smart streets, safe streets,
Complete street.
safe street?
Complete.
Complete
Complete
street.
streets, all right. Complete street survey that's going on right now in town that will give us more information about the traffic patterns that we're currently experienced with the garage in its location. And that'll inform us somewhat about what, if any, safety problems traffic has. Based on the evaluation that we've done to date, the existing site and facilities really do meet all the requirements of the highway department. So what about growth? That's always a question. We, as a study group, we take no position on how much growth the town of Temple is going to have in the future, if any, right? We don't care about that care about it, obviously, but we're not making projections because it could go up, it could go down, it could do what it's done for the last 100 years and stay the same. You know, we don't know. But what we can do is look at how much growth would be necessary in order to impact the highway department enough to outgrow its facilities. And there are currently 33 miles of roadway in town serviced by 2 trucks in about 2.5 hours per service loop. And adding additional homes on existing roadways, those don't impact the winter storm requirements of the highway department. The same roads service those homes, no matter how many roads or homes are along them. And we have an additional 1-ton truck in reserve right now, if necessary, to kind of expand our capability. So adding another full truck would service an additional 16.5 miles of roadway. If we have our existing 300-foot frontage zoning, that 16.5 miles of road would support up to 580 homes. That's homes on each side of that 16.5 miles, 300 foot of frontage, 580 homes. As of today, there are 522, or as of 2021, there were 522 housing units in Temple. So an additional truck would allow us to double the number of homes that we would service. The population of Temple could double, and we'd have to add 1 more truck. So the resource that we found to be in critical need today is not equipment, but personnel to operate that equipment. The DOT requirements of 8 hours on with a minimum of 4 hours off can't be maintained through an extended storm period with the bodies that we have in the department right now. Putting a driver in the seat during that DOT rest time is the equivalent of adding additional truck, right? So if we had the people with the existing facilities and the existing equipment, we wouldn't even have to add that additional full truck to service that additional 580 homes. So we just don't see a case where the facilities needs of the department are going to grow, right? So obviously saying that the existing facilities meet all of our requirements leaves us with the option of doing nothing. And that's option 1. But based on our interviews, other town facilities, and some benefits expressed as reasons to relocate the highway department previously, we developed 3 other options that kind of may be more attractive, either from an aesthetics perspective, or there is definitely some cost benefit analysis that can look at the longevity of equipment if it is in a covered facility versus left out, right? So you'll see on the walls around you 4 other options, or 3 other options besides do nothing that are that are posted on the wall. Option 2 is build a new 2-bay heated building and remove the block building. The 2-bay heated building would go behind the town hall here. And the block building on the end of this existing 2-bay would be removed. Option 3 has that same 2-bay and then adds a greater shed along it. And again, removing that block building in the end. Option 4 is a new equipment and greater shed behind the facility, remove the existing equipment shed and put a new 2-bay there and remove the block building. So it's a comprehensive rework of the things that are back here. More of an aesthetic gain, but less, but it really doesn't provide any additional capability than the option 3, right? And all of those options, including option 1, which is do nothing to the existing buildings, can be augmented by the construction of a sand shed. And that sand shed takes that sand pile out of the middle of the lot back there and condenses the amount of space necessary to hold that sand because it can go up more and opens up the center for parking capabilities, right? So that's the big advantage of a sand shed. Okay, and you know, the reason we're here today is that these options are not locked in stone, and these are concepts that are open to revision based on input we get from this period of town engagement. Okay, all of the options were constructed around the idea of providing the possibility of phased implementation so that we don't get a one-time big tax hit in order to implement that. Reduce maintenance cost, heavy equipment lifetime extension that I've already spoke of, and improved parking for high attendance events in the town center. And as I said, the initial site concepts and the 3D renderings of the options are available for your viewing on the poster boards and, you know, with the dots later, right? We did all of our cost benefit analysis in 2024 dollars. We didn't make any projections on, you know, the impacts of inflation or deflation in the future. Near-term project costs have been quantified quite well. We certainly need to extend our cost benefit analysis through the full life cycle of a building of 30+ years, right? So we've gotten these objectives costs, these near-term project costs, the hard numbers in pretty good shape. We've obtained, you know, quotes for construction and demolition materials, you know, and thanks to Bruce for doing the legwork on getting all of these quotes in. And the quotes are not just the building foundation and shell, but all the electrical, plumbing, insulation, HVAC as appropriate for the use of the building that we're looking at. Okay, so it should be a fairly comprehensive cost for those kind of construction elements. Okay, and we're now in the process of looking at the subjective benefit analysis to determine the perceived value to the town of things like improved aesthetics and parking. Okay, and we're still in the process of looking for grants and the potential of doing it. We don't have a hard enough plan to really go forward with much of that at this point. Okay. So the project cost and the time phasing. Option 1 really just takes our current status and allows us to continue in the existing facilities until they don't work anymore, right? Until they've just reached end of life. Certainly, in order to extend that, we do need to increase our current maintenance budget, which is now only $2,000 a year, to probably $5,000 to $10,000 a year for maintenance in order to maintain these buildings, you know, through their expected life. So that would be option one, essentially to do nothing. And the life cycle cost on this is, you know, $45,000 to $90,000 over 30 years, right? Yeah. Option two, again, build the new heated two-bay garage, somewhere between $145,000 and $180,000 to do that. That would be one acquisition. And then removing and modifying the block building is $18,000 to $26,000 to do that. That could be done in another taxation event. It wouldn't have to both be done at the same time. Our total project cost is somewhere between $163,000 and $203,000. And the max that would have to go out to the taxpayer for at any one time is $145,000 to $180,000. Option three is building that new heated two-bay. Again, maximum cost there of $180,000. The next phase would be to remove and modify the block building, and the third phase would be to build the greater pole barn. Relatively inexpensive to build a pole barn, you know, $10,000 to $20,000 for basically a cover for the grader. Total project costs go up a little bit. We still have that one large sum that would have to be put in front of the taxpayers at one time for that $180,000 to build the heated two-bay. That in all these options, that's kind of the one, the largest, you know, thing that would have to be done at one time. Right? All the other things are, every time you see a blue arrow, a blue bar with an arrow up there, that could be a separate year's warrant article to fund those things. Right? Rather than having to put everything in front of the taxpayer for funding at one time. Those could all be phased in those blue arrows. All right. And the last option is some more moving around. Removing the equipment shed is in there. There's another fairly large acquisition of the equipment and greater shed that is a little more than just the pole barn in the option three. And the sand shed is somewhere between $30,000 and $60,000 to build that. There is money in a garage relocation fund, and that trust fund could be dissolved, the money put into the general fund, and then used for this construction project. So any of these total project costs could be reduced by that $249,000 that's in the fund already. So that makes any of these options fairly inexpensive from a taxation perspective. So we're at next steps now. We want to work and engage across the full cross section of Temple residents. Try and figure out what your perceptions are, what your preferences are, how you view all of these options, and let us know what we didn't think of, both from what could be done on the site and are there things we didn't think of as far as drawbacks or benefits to any of these options out there. We'll then complete cost benefit analysis, and we'll bring the results of these surveys forward to the town next town meeting. Thank you. Any questions right off the bat?
Possibly signaling. I'm just wondering if any of that additional maintenance has been planned for by the CIP, or this is in addition to anything with the CIP.
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer to what's out there in that plan right now. Anybody here? So we you know, so that those maintenance costs may be offset by something that's in the plan. You're right. Mm-hmm. You would need more drivers, yeah.
or is that not?
No, I think it's just, we don't always have a vehicle like that in reserve. And it's, because we haven't gotten rid of a vehicle. That is kind of toward the end of its lifespan, that we have that reserve vehicle right now.
Jim, I just want to comment on the fair truck. My understanding of the reason we have that is because the newest truck we bought, there is no parts available for the whole entire truck. So there was a break. We might have to wait a while for international to produce it. That's very smart. Because I questioned why we kept that. And that was very smart move to keep that as a reserve truck.
Good.
And there's, by the way, there's no answer on the parts. Because I got a really good friend that works at Liberty International. There's no parts.
Hmm.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear what you said. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't think about the CIP, but CIP.
I think when we speak, we ought to either have that floating microphone or else use this one here. Okay, I have a couple of questions for you. One is, we've always known that the highway department can keep going with whatever it's doing. It's obviously doing what they are doing. Okay, we don't have the equipment under cover and we don't have a parking problem solved. You have not, as I see it, done anything about solving the parking problem. You're going to move the sand shed over and have it in the middle. Here's the trouble that I think that you have. The highway department needs to be able to work efficiently. They need to be able to get their work done. They're not necessarily neat. You know, I don't know how many of you all have actually gone around, thank you, have gone around the outside of this property and looked at the stuff that is out there. You know, there is a lot of stuff, you know, where are you going to put that stuff? You know, it isn't a matter of, you know, being really efficient and stacking it all up in some new little building and whatnot. That's not the way rough, tough highway worker people work. They do their work and they don't necessarily stack up everything in a very efficient way. They got to be able to do their work. Okay. So I don't see that you've solved anything about the parking. You're going to create this open area in the middle where the sand shed is right now. How is that going to be? Is that going to be a paved area with lines marked off? How many spaces are you going to get? I mean, this whole thing seems to be really quite silly. You know, the other problem is when you have the need to have trucks coming and going, say, think of the time when we have town voting, for example, and people are coming and parking and all over the streets and whatnot, and the trucks are moving in and out because there's a snowstorm going. You're not going to be able to have that parking back there. So it's your creation of a parking place back there is heavily dependent on time and circumstances, and you would be very lucky to have that. No, so that is my criticism of your whole concept. And when I look at these sketches here, I say to myself, oh boy, they can really make this look pretty. You know, I mean, this is silly. I mean, you get right down to it. But okay, here's another point that I want to ask you, and maybe this is something you can answer. For some reason, I believe that you are basing a number of these costs on donated labor or donated costs. Is this true, Bruce? Have you gotten people to donate to this project and because of their personal favoritism towards you or something or other? Is this part, are those costs embedded in these costs, your donations?
Any of the contractors will donate their time. They also give us a full bit of what it would be.
Yeah.
And we use those numbers.
Yeah.
So, point case, we have a concrete gentleman in town that we use his bid, his full bid. But he said, if it happens, it'll be just the cost of the concrete and my bid will be free because I was here to pay taxes. So we do have a few people that will do that, but the bids that we did are the full bid. They're not, we didn't count for the building. So the numbers are the numbers. They'll be anything or less.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
It's a pity that your group has been so focused on this particular site. Because in the end, it's not big enough. Everybody knows that. It's not big enough for the, yeah, I know, you said that all along, you're gonna do this. Are you,
You may ask the question about parking. Okay, option one, which is do nothing, is a status quo.
Yeah,
Option
right.
two, you get 20-something spaces when they take that garage down.
well, it's a pity that, to me, it's a pity that you are trying to make this site fit something that it really can't fit. It can't solve the parking issues. It can't solve the safety, the trucks running up and down
Well,
this.
they haven't
And
established
it
the real
also,
issue.
it also cannot, sorry, I lost my train of thought here.
You haven't established.
It
the real
cannot
issue.
operate
That's
efficiently
conjecture on
within
your
this
part,
site.
then.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Right, so you asked some questions. And I'll try and remember them all. But the first question was, would we pave the parking lot and put lines on it? No. The parking can be reconfigured based on the conditions that are out there. It would be unlined. During big events, you would probably want to have a parking lot attendant guiding people in and out. So that might add a extra person to the staffing on voting day, for instance, when you have a large attendance and a large need for parking. So the last thing we want to do is pave that and create a high runoff environmental problem from a paved parking lot, right? The existing site has no environmental problems and we don't want to create one. Certainly the amount of parking is going to vary based on the conditions and what's going on at the time. If there is a snowstorm on parking on voting day, you're absolutely right. You're not going to get the same number of parking spots out there for that event on a voting day, right? As you would if there weren't. But you've got a lot more out there than you do now. And somehow we've managed to vote for the last 200 and some years without having enough parking out there by everyone's, right? We've managed to do it. So we're going to make it better. Is it going to be the optimal use for parking for that space? No, but it may well be the most cost-effective, taxpayer-friendly way to get both a parking improvement without the expense of relocating the entire department and tearing up and making an environmental mess out of another site in town.
So I'm really excited about Sand Shed and having the parking back there. I think that's a really great idea. But I heard that maybe the highway department guys don't love the idea of a sand shed for various reasons. And could you just speak to that so that everyone's aware of that issue?
Sure. It is an extra step to get the stand, loaded into that shed. And they can't approach it from all directions. But they can approach it from the front and get it out. They they never really said, don't do it, or it's going to be bad for us. It was, we don't think we need a shed. Why? Because the sand in the middle of the lot out there right now is exposed to full sun. And even in the winter and it's cold, a little bit of sun that comes down bakes it enough so that it's just a crust of frozen on top and they're able to get the sand out. So they're telling us we don't need a sand shed. But in my conversations with Kent, he's like, I don't think you need to spend the money on a sand shed. And if all things were equal, you're right. But is having improved parking out there, that additional 40 to 60 parking spots, depending upon what's going on any given day, that having that sand out of the middle is going to give you, worth the $30,000 to $60,000 of building a sand shed? That's a question, those soft benefits that we're coming here to ask you, for $30,000 to $60,000. I'm not sure what the tax assessment on that would be, but that's where we're asking.
$140 of additional spend by the town is 62 cents per thousand of your assessment. So if you have $100,000 house and the town spends $100,000, your share is $62. And if that's spent over a few years, if it's spent over 2 years, it's $31 a year. So that is, a few dollars each person to move the sanction.
Yeah, I'd like to, if it's okay, I'd like to address Gretchen's question because you made a very good point. Because I've talked to Kent a number of times and he's really concerned about the sand shed being moved. He's really kind of adamant about it, it's staying where it is, and you've heard that and I've heard it. And so that it is an ongoing, it'll have to be an ongoing discussion. He thinks that it's much safer and much better for the operation to have the sand where it is versus having it trucks coming in and all that sort of stuff. He's got a whole rationale for it, and that would have to be that would be discussed. But that would be an issue. And again, the idea of the sand shed is just an option, and nobody would force it on the highway department if they were concerned about that being an issue. But you have raised the only issue I've ever heard from anybody in the highway department was the moving of the sand to a sand shed. And if I could just address one other thing, there is no equipment exposed outside that in any way affects the viability of the highway department. The only thing outside is that has any bearing whatsoever is the grader. And that's why we were the option of having that sort of a pole shed to cover the grader and also be able to plug it in. So there'd be some electrical work there, but outside of that, there are no liabilities. The stuff around the edge we're talking about gravel. We're talking about old piping. We're talking about miscellaneous stuff like that. That's not a function of the highway department doing their job or in any way impacts their job. Thank you.
Hi. I think it's great that you're identifying the possibility of building a heated 2-bay garage for 150K or so and using resources of the town to do that. I point out though that could happen here or it could happen in New Ipswich. In other words, that is not location specific. So there's an option to build a 2-bay garage somewhere, not necessarily here. I personally think that the future of the town should be focused on people and not trucks. And so from that viewpoint, if we think 20, 30, 40 years ahead, what do we really want for downtown Temple? And I'd like to see that it's pedestrian friendly. So that's question one. What are you doing to address pedestrian traffic when there's heavy equipment around? The second point is this is a significant focus on snow events and plowing. But the activities of the highway department, that's probably 10% of what they do. And so I'd like to see an analysis of what would happen if the heavy equipment was not here, but was some other location. For example, the lot by the high school, and how that would impact the operations of the highway department, whether it's tractable or intractable. I certainly don't want to see the highway department just move down the road next to Bruce's. I think that's a bad idea too, because again, you're taking away from the character of the village, and we'd like to see this be a beautiful, pedestrian-friendly and people-friendly village. Thanks.
Can I speak to that a little bit, Clay?
Yeah, so two questions, yeah.
So
Pedestrians
a
and
couple of things.
how much of the highway department activity is really focused on snow removal, and how would that be impacted by it not being in the center of town?
So it's funny because we did discuss that at length with Kent, and he said this is actually an ideal location because it's in the middle of town. So they literally drive out of here and one goes this way, one goes that way.
Yes.
and they handle their routes for plowing and whatever else. It's very efficient right here.
Right.
So we did talk about that, the
No doubt.
extra travel time.
No doubt. So the question though, Amy, is how inefficient would it be if it was further down the road towards the?
It
school?
would be less efficient because the way it works right now is the most
But
efficient.
what's the impact of that? Is it a showstopper, or is it just we'd end up doing another shift of plowing or something like that? So
Well, we sussed this out with the existing personnel and
Yeah.
their opinion, their thoughts on the way we are operating right now is that it is the most efficient way for us to operate. So we did talk about if there wasn't another location, it just means that instead of coming here, parking, getting in their vehicles and both going their separate ways in the interest of getting streets plowed as quickly as possible, moving to another location is going to have an impact on the efficiency of the way the highway department currently runs. As far as the parking situation, that's an opinion. It's part of the reason that we're here tonight. It's something that's subjective. So there's no actual cost to adding parking other than physically adding it. So our question for the public is, how important is it to you to add parking? Is it an issue? Is it just a pain in the neck sometimes?
that wasn't my question. My question
As
was-
far as safety
it-
goes, pedestrian friendly.
Yeah.
We've also talked about the fact that right now, everybody the three people who work there right now all know that there's a library right there, a town hall right here.
Mhm.
They're very aware that there's at any given time, children running across the street. They know that that's a possibility. So the fact that we only have 3 people going in and out of this site on a regular basis, in my opinion, is probably safer than having 40 or 50 cars parked up there that maybe aren't as aware of what we have going on here in the center of town.
So the second question was, how much of the highway department activity is related to snow and how much is just general maintenance, and how does that impact location?
So we
Right.
did a really comprehensive season by season look at what the needs of the department were. And you have to size the facilities for the most equipment that is needed for any given activity. And by far the driving activity is for the highway department is snow removal. So could through the summer, the amount of equipment be reduced on site and another facility be built somewhere else? Absolutely. It's a possibility, right? But in the winter, when snow removal is happening, all that equipment needs to be here because that's kind of the worst case need. And that equipment does need to be co-located with everything that's going on here in order to have that happen. So the facility can't shrink during the summer. Yeah, it can have less activity on it, but the facilities can't shrink in the summer and then grow back in the winter. You know, you got to have those facilities on hand to deal with the worst case.
Hey, thanks, everybody. Great job. I can't let the snow plowing thing go, so. So, you guys remember charrette? You know, that whole exercise was wonderful. So the solution to, voting day and snow, school, it's closed on voting day. I don't know how many towns in New Hampshire use their school for voting day. Go down there in the snow, boom, done, problem solved. Next problem. If we move the highway garage, everybody's assuming they're gonna plow up here for parking. Why would they do that? They're not gonna plow anything up here. They're gonna plow the roads, the roads, the roads. And then when they're done with that, then they're gonna plow the municipal building and here. Because you can't get here unless you plow the road. You know, it's just common sense. So the snow plowing thing, to me, is not an argument. The parking thing was an issue. The sand pile, so somehow that's gotta be worked out. That area of the sand pile is the parking. But we don't need the parking. I mean, all these events we do, I mean, we just had to play, right? Was anybody not be able to, couldn't get here because they couldn't park? So I don't know. I keep hearing all this stuff, but it's not really not true. It's just ways to make it harder for the group, in my view. So you guys are doing a great job. Snow's not an issue. The selectmen could deal with that. If it become an issue, they could deal with it just like that. Just move voting down there. And the highway garage is doing a great job. And I don't think anybody's ever been hurt. And unless I'm wrong, I mean, you would know, right? More than anybody, but your family, nobody's been hurt by the highway garage. So, thanks.
If I could, I just want to say one thing about the safety and pedestrians and children. The library, I think it's changed its hours, but I think 2 days of the week is the library open at 10 o'clock in the morning. Otherwise, it's opened in the afternoon when pretty much the highway garage is finished. They stop working at about 3:30. So there isn't this engaging people. As a matter of fact, we did a 2 or 3 day study where I went out here and measured all the cars and all the trucks coming through for about a 5-hour period. And it averaged about 15 cars and maybe about 10 people one day I was looking at it, and they were parking over there and going into the library. There's no activity in this building 99% of the time during the day. So this idea of there being this crisis with people and pedestrians up in this area is fairly minimal from my experience. And just one other thing in terms of the truck snow plowing, the big issue was that they also salt, and the salting is always what precedes the plowing, and also sanding. So having all of that stuff up here is very effective in terms of all those things. To address Amy's point about having a central location, the first thing they do is they go out and salt. And just so happens this year, we have an extraordinary bonus of non-expenditures because they didn't buy salt. We had no snow. So anyway, just wanted to mention this thing.
I have more to say on parking. I'm super fascinated by all the comments about voting and parking, because I don't think there's ever any issue on voting with parking, because you vote and you leave and it's like, you know, a constant traffic thing, but there's never like a huge mass of people trying to vote, unless maybe presidential election, 7 a.m., you know, like there's a big rush right before work. But I wouldn't worry about voting. But I would think about like what happens on Harvest Festival with the white elephant, and there's cars completely all the way down to the town hall. Halloween trunk or treat, Easter egg hunt. Like there's a lot of things that Rec Commission does up here that gets a huge volume. And for all of you that have been here forever, I get like, you can find parking. If you have lived here for 30 years and you understand how parking works, as a new person, if I did not have my mother-in-law, I would not come up to the center of town, because you drive up here and you're like, there's cars on both sides of the road. They're parking in different directions. There's people around the corner and there's cars. I would just turn around and go home. It doesn't make any sense. Like from a person that doesn't know the town, like unless you have somebody to tell you and explain, you're not going to go drive around that sand pile and park next to a forklift around the corner behind something. It just doesn't make sense anywhere else in the world, right? So it's just confusing. So we need a new resident parking guide, or we need like better parking, because it just doesn't make sense. So there are events where we need understanding where to park, because it just gets kind of crazy. That's all.
Just to say one thing, one of the options we have there, when we took down the concrete, the cinder block 2-bay right here, Russ did a study, and it's in the survey he did. I think there's something like 25 to 30 parking spaces just between the library and where that
15 to 18, yeah, right.
Well, I thought, was it 25 or so? And so if that cinder block was moved, that cinder block house bay was right there, moved, and we built another 2-bay on this side, there's an extraordinary expanse of parking that'd be very easy and accessible. Coming up here, and you'd see it right away. We could have a sign there. So that is a really viable option. So it's not driving around the sand pile, parking next to old piping and not finding your car in a snowstorm. So that is a possible option too.
Yeah, there is in any of the options other than the leave it the way it is, that block building does come down, and there is an improvement in parking in that you have that 15, 20, whatever number of spots that kind of, it grows this parking here next to the library. And of course, the movement of the sand pile is the big payoff, but you get some under any of the options.
Clay, can I chime in?
Oh, that's one.
Yeah, okay.
Have I ever been able to stop you yet?
Yeah, well, I asked. That's a start. As far as the elections, and you're right, that's not really a big deal. We somehow find a way to vote, but the snowstorms when we vote, just to clarify how it works. So we always vote in March, and it can happen. There can be a snowstorm during the day when we have voting, and that's a possibility. The other time we vote is in September, in the primary every 2 years, every other year. And there's never any snow then. And then we vote in November, every two cycle for governor or for president every 4 years. And it can happen. It hasn't happened many times, but we could get snow. So, and then once every 4 years, we have a presidential primary. So that certainly could snow then. But so we're talking about 1 or 2 days a year that there would be people here voting, and we would be worried about the equipment in a safety issue. As for safety during the day, the highway department does end their day at 3 o'clock. And most of the events that happen here are in the evening. So I just wanted to clarify that too. Yeah.
I'd also mention on the Easter egg hunt for one, and certainly on the Harvest Festival, which it's like parking Jenga when you're out there. Those again are weekend activities, so the highway garage is shut down during that time period. So they're really not having an effect on that. And I don't see that parking issue ever change because you just get so many people coming into the center of town that aren't from here. So that's something we're probably going to have to live with regardless.
But I think the reality is take what we have today and add 50 to 70 parking spaces. And then what is it? It may not go away, but it's gonna be a whole lot less. So.
I have one.
Oh,
I wish Gail had left because I think she had asked a question and it didn't get answered. She asked why you're so focused on the rework up here. And I think the charter needs to be explained to everyone so they understand. I think that was a two-part question she asked.
We're focused on what can we do with the existing highway garage because that's our charter. And this committee existed because there was the land use committee or whatever it was called, let's move the highway garage. It's going to be free and we can build a gold-plated highway garage down the street. And we've done some commercial building work. The reality is you're looking at $5 million at the blink of an eye to move this highway garage. And that doesn't even include the decommissioning costs here. And enough residents, and we're brand new in town. We've been here barely 2 years. So I don't have a whole lot of history here. But enough residents were sharp enough to go, whoa, wait a second. And this committee came into existence. And I believe it should be an integrated committee, but it's not my choice. So I'm on the one that I think is the most appropriate. Are we good with all of that? We've got a couple more exercises. On your pause, make sure everybody's okay with it. On your table, there's a bunch of dots, and we asked everybody to take 2 dots. And 1 dot goes on the option that you think is most appropriate. And on the bottom, there is a handwritten sheet that says option 1, do nothing, because there is no picture for that. And your second dot goes on the sheet that should we build a sand shed? Should we not build a sand shed? And, we have a number for that. Any color. We're just going to count numbers of votes.
Yeah. Clay, you should probably clarify, option 1, doing nothing, isn't really true. Option one, we would be painting, there hasn't been maintenance up here for years. There's paint peeling off the buildings, there's rotted door sills, there's flashing missing. And I guess it's presumed that because the people that were in charge thought that it was gonna be a slam dunk, that we were gonna move the highway garage, they just neglected this. And there wasn't any money appropriated, which there should have been for years, for maintenance, like we maintain all of our town buildings. And so if we did choose option one, which is to do nothing, we actually would do windows in the block building that aren't insulated glass from the 60s, and we would put a new roof on it, and we would have a painter up there and spend thousands of dollars on paint. And so there would be a lot of cosmetic work that would need to be done. So it's not completely nothing, but it would look better than it does now.
And you have to fix the see-through wall in the cinder block building. So, yeah, do nothing is about $10,000 a year in maintenance to try and get things back into shape.
And we'll wander around if anybody has any questions on any of the options and what they entail as they're laid out here. We'll
And-
be happy
and-
to explain.
Please, when you're up, have some snacks in the back. We don't want to be taking all those home to our house. Well, that was, yeah. Yeah.
That's a good point. We're supposed to be voting down. These should be done too. You want to take that? We want to just do like a hearing. That's not the craziest thing.
Did you mention that option one was the sweet spot? Did you mention that option one was the winter spot or you?
Amy, get stickers. You should be. Amy.
If we could work way back to the seats.
I know, it's amazing how you walk. Mostly option 4 and Sanjay, yeah. Oh, really? About leaving.
Okay, can we return back to the tables? One more exercise, guys.
We'll see if he'll actually walk.
You need a hammer.
Man, you got Bruce's son is working for him. And he's doing a killer job. Ever since he took over, have you noticed how much neater everything is? Everything's neater. I'm talking about around the court, all the equipment, he's got it all organized and put it up around the back. Oh yeah, big time. Everything's in its place.
That too. The last thing we're gonna do tonight is I put a list of questions on each of the tables. Please grab one of them. We're gonna walk through them and then ask you guys to give us your comments. So the first, how important is the aesthetics of the highway garage? Is there a huge bunch of value in having, beautiful carriage sheds and everything else, or do you care if it looks like crap back there and it's a working highway garage? So importance, and give us your comments.
What aspects of aesthetics, right, are is it visibility of things from the highway? Is it the paint needs to be updated and we're happy? What really is it that that tweaks you in the way of aesthetics?
Next one is, how important is additional parking around town hall? There was a lot of input on that tonight. But if more is needed, how many more do you think we need? Is it 10? Is it 100? Is it 1,000? The next one's a wide open question. We've heard a lot about safety issues. A lot of them are not backed up by facts and history, but everybody has an opinion. What, if anything, do you feel is a safety issue with the current site? And one thing we didn't talk about tonight is there's a transition to hydraulic fluids that are actually edible, which I thought was pretty cool. I think it's canola oil or something like that. But what our highway garage guys do is they basically, somebody comes in, sucks all the fluids out and leaves with them. So all the oil changes and hydraulic fluid changes and everything, they don't stay on site. A contractor comes in, sucks it all off and leaves. It's a truck that basically, I'm not sure what you're,
There's no guy underneath the truck with an oil pan anymore, right?
oh,
They don't just
okay.
open up the plug
I
and
didn't know
have
what
it
you meant.
drain out, and splash on the ground. They have ports that they hook vacuums up to, they suck all the oil out of the vehicle directly. It goes into their removal for offsite. So it never sees air, right? And if we move beyond that,
Except for the trucks, trucks were delivered, where they service it, but all the equipment, you're talking about the actual equipment, tap comes in and does it all at the same time.
Right.
No oil ever touches the ground on this site, nothing's ever serviced.
and by transitioning to green hydrogen and green lubricating fluid, even if there were a spill, it goes into that's nice, let the rain wash it away.
You can.
Rather than, having to worry about contaminating your aquifers.
And to add the green stuff, I believe it's 50% longer on the service of it.
Yes, it is.
So the cost is more for the green oil. But you get that back as a service interval is 50%. And you're right, if you go hydraulic hose on a dirt road in front of somebody's house, and their well might be close to the road or something, you don't have to fear, because it's completely edible oil. Gives them light on it.
I'll take.
I'm gonna let Matt. Can you explain the last one?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We had a question back here.
There's a lot more basic fuel necessary.
Sure, you can't get rid of having fuel on site, right? And the fuel that we have stored on site, though, is in a containment vessel that is designed to hold, if the entire contents of our fuel emptied, it would go into that containment vessel.
Mhm.
Now, certainly if there were a puncture in the fuel tank of the vehicle, you could have a spill. But guess what? If you drove in here with a car and have 50 cars in those parking lots, it's not, that are not as well maintained as our highway department vehicles are, you have those same odds of a spill. I think that's a bit of a red herring. Yes, it's a concern, but it's an equal concern whether there's heavy equipment and highway garage equipment here or people with unmaintained or maintained cars coming in.
Matt. You're the
Okay.
numbers guy.
So this is something that, it's what brings us to meetings like this. And the question is, how would this project affect my taxes? Because that's what we're worried about, in today's world, we're worried about how much we're going to spend. We spend some money, what's going to cost me? So there's a question here that says, over the life of the highway garage project, how much would your household be willing to contribute through taxes? Note that we're asking about a total and not a per year. So this is just a one-time charge. If these things go through, it will not be added to your taxes every year. And this project could be spread out over multiple years as well to continue to reduce the impact on your tax bill. And then we've got 4 choices down here, 0 to 50, 51 to 250, 251 to 500, and 501 to 1,000. So that would be a one-time increase in your tax bill to effectively do the projects that we've kind of put out here today.
Well, let me clarify that, Matt.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
mean, it's how much total would it be?
Right.
But if you said $500 and it was over 5 years, it's $100 a year.
Right.
For 5 years,
Correct.
not 500 at the beginning.
Correct. Yeah. So let's make an assumption just for an example. Assuming that the town elects to do option 4, which is everything. It's the whole kit and caboodle. And I can see by the dots up there, that is where the majority was from this group tonight. How would this one-time increase on your tax bill? Well, this is how the increase would be calculated. And this is a little bit of good news. Earlier, Clay had mentioned that it was 60 for $100,000. It was $62. But that's actually, that number's high because that was based on the town being valued at 164 million. The town is currently valued, the real estate is valued at 216 million. So if we take $100,000 and divide that by 216,000, that's 46 cents per thousand, or $46 for 100,000 of assessed value. So for instance, if your home is valued at $200,000 and we needed to raise $100,000, your increase in taxes for that project on your next tax bill would be $92. And this would be a one-time charge. It wouldn't be added to your tax bill every year. And you might ask why I use the sum of $100,000 as an example. The reason being is there's approximately $300,000 in an existing expendable trust fund accounts that was earmarked for the moving of the highway garage. This was voted in by a previous warrant article at town meeting and then was rescinded at the special town meeting that we had when this all came to fruition. And it's actually how this committee got formed. So there's approximately 300,000, which is a combination of two expendable trust accounts plus accrued interest. That money is sitting there that we've already raised the money for. This had it would have no effect on you whatsoever. If the voters of the town agree, another warrant article could be put forth to the voters to earmark those monies, that 300,000, for the construction of the new buildings or improvements at the current site. Those monies plus an additional 100,000, and that's why I used that number before, for that 42 or $46 per 100,000 of your assessed value, would provide enough funding to complete option 4. So as a cost factor for this, we're way ahead of the game going in. Should the members of the town decide that they want to move forward with the existing site and with the models that we put forth. And again, that could even be phased in over a couple of years. So the impact on your tax dollar, though there is an increase, it's minimal, which is it's kind of exciting, I think. Any questions on that? Statements?
Steve Anderson again. I used to be on the budget committee like 12 years with Bruce with Bruce. So thank you. I'm an option 4 guy. I'll just tell you. So we always thought way back then, and it's like forever ago, to try not to make things go multi-year, because it always costs more, always costs more. So if you want to do it, you just do it, or at least put the money up. So I think I get this right. So you said 300,000, it's the 250, what's left of a 35 interest. And then I'm looking at option 4, 341 if I was going to go on the high, 61, 402. Minus 300, 100,000. Okay, so 42 cents a thousand, 42 bucks. 42 bucks for every 100. Like my house is like 240. It's really 300. Everybody's assessed less than they could sell their house. But so 240 like me, it's like, I don't know, $100, so 90 bucks for a year. Okay, so I want to get it over with 1 year. I mean, if you got a $500,000 house, that's 200 bucks. So I don't know. So if you're going to present this at town meeting, I mean, I would hope that maybe you could nail it down, or even ask Kent too. We used to do this all the time in the budget committee. We had a big thing going on like this. We'd look at the fire department, the road agent, and different things and see where we could pull back on that year. It was a big thing with us. So maybe we could lay off paving for that year to find that 100G. I mean, this is all a benefit to the highway guys. I mean, but if that paving makes it more expensive, I mean, they'd have to work that out, right? But so different things you can lay off, and maybe you wouldn't even need taxation. So there's all sorts of ways to do it. And then you got, the fund balance. What's the average fund balance being returned? All that stuff comes into play. So it's great that you guys got that far, and you're saying that's total cost. You had mentioned before there might even be, donations. I mean, really, and from what I understand, building materials are going the other way. So it might be the time, I don't know. So anyway, that's my statement. And thanks, Matt, for all that math.
Thanks, Steve.
And you never know. One thing that we haven't done at this point with this is look at grants. There could be grant money out there, and we'd be looking for 100,000. And grant money, you need to have matching funds when you come up with these things. And well, we've already got, 3/4 of the money in the bank. Correct.
I think the biggest thing I got out of being on this committee is the fact that knowing that there are other priorities in life that I've learned about since being on this committee that this town has to focus on. And knowing that this isn't really the major problem in the town and we can let it sit for a couple of years, just fix the stuff that got, the painting and the sills and whatnot. But to me, that's like, okay, we don't have to prioritize this right now because it's not actually the burning problem. Like the school thing is gonna be coming up fast, I'm sure, as they're going through stuff. So to me, it's a peace of mind that we can just keep going and we're okay. And that's an okay option too. We don't have to go to spend money at the next town meeting. We can do it in 2-3 years and we'll be okay. It's another way that you can take what we did to let you know that, okay, we don't need to focus on that now. Let's go focus on the next big burning thing.
Any other questions in the comment, nothing else we need to hear? Yeah.
My wants to was a need for like, a breakthrough and or. And things like that, because
Can I speak to that? So the need for a break room is a perceived need. It's not one that the highway department is requesting. But one of the options that we presented was removing the block building and then just putting a small shed roof type structure on the existing 2-bay garage that could have an office and a break room. But the break room is not something that the highway department needs. It's something that people thought they should have.
Rob, just to add to that, they have access to this building. They come right over here if they sit down, they can use the refrigerator, they can use the bathrooms here. So it's really not an issue.
Any other questions, comments, anything else we need to hear?
Saving the best for last.
Ken Caisse. I just want to make sure that everybody understands what we try to do to buy down tax rate every year. We take extra monies, extra funds, and try and buy down the tax rate to keep the tax rate steady. If we have room in our warrant articles per year to put some of this stuff in, would be great, would work fantastic. If we do this all at once and we have a big year with warrant articles, where everybody's going to be crying. There's no way around it. So I think you really have to be careful and weigh your options. Because if we can't buy down the tax rate, see what happened in Greenville a few years ago when they went from $4 and something to $6 and something. It'll happen here. And everybody's screws will come loose. Thanks.
Point well taken. Anything else? Yeah.
Yeah, so there's one building in town that hasn't been mentioned that has a real parking problem. And selectmen and fire department have identified it as a real safety hazard. That's the church. And it has very poor attendance at the moment, but there's hope that it would have 50 people on a Sunday or, maybe 20 or 30 cars. There's just not enough capacity in that area in front to hold a significant congregation coming. If parking was improved behind the town hall, it's quite possible there could be a stairs or a ramp put in between the back of the church and this area. It would be a brilliant solution for a parking problem that really does exist. So there you go.
Makes sense.
Sorry, last comment for me. I just want to say thank you all. This is the data that I expected to get out of the first round. And I really appreciate the fact that you guys came together and took the time to do this for the town. So however this pans out, I just wanted to thank you for your effort and your time.
Thank you, Nicole.
But I think on that note, thank you for your vote of confidence. And we will close this meeting. Yeah, just leave them on the table, grab them on the way out. Thank you.
That's good. Oh, you don't want to hand it in? I'll never tell her. It's just like, leaves are low. Comes in.
He's gonna go crash.
Yeah.
Say we did a terrible job.
She told us what was what.
Yeah.
She told us what was.
I thought maybe we should ask. How do you feel about us?
That's a word there.
It seemed like we're.